A middleweight bout featuring Uriah Hall vs. Strickland headlines this UFC event's main card. Strickland gets the call for his first main event and will face number 8 Uriah Hall, who has a 4-fight win streak. Hall is fresh off of a TKO victory over Anderson Silva and followed that up with a 17-second TKO win over Chris Weidman. Strickland is much deserving of this spot and could cause some waves with a win. The majority of this matchup will take place on the feet. I expect both to go for the finish early for a statement win. Hall is more of a wild card, and while he has finishing power, there are times where he will fold fairly fast when he's hurt. In this matchup, I expect Strickland to push the pace and walk forward into the exchanges more than Hall. Strickland will look to keep the pace up by looking to overwhelm Hall with combos and a mix of leg kicks. Hall will counter less often but with more intent. Although Strickland will take a punch to land his own, you have to consider across 26 fights that he's only been finished once. This fight could bring some surprises. Both fighters are hittable and bring finishing power. When looking at paths to victory, you have to give Strickland the edge with wrestling, though both have decent takedown defense. I don't see them looking to grapple much. On the feet, it will be about Strickland's volume and pace versus the power via elusive strikes from Hall. Neither guy has much head movement, so somebody will land a fight-changing shot. Hall will have a 3.5-inch reach advantage in his favor, though historically gets hit more than he lands. I give Strickland the slight edge in this one if I have to pick sides, based on the sheer inconsistency from Hall over the years. It's tough to go all in on a fighter who has gone 4-4 in his last 8 fights, not including the Weidman accident. In those fights, he's been finished in 3 of 4 of the losses and has won via finish in 3 of the 4 wins along the stretch. He's a kill or be killed type of fighter. Now Strickland has had more success over the same timeframe, since 2015, and has gone 8-2 over his last 10, with 4 of those fights ending inside the distance. I do like the chances of this one ending under 3.5 rounds, and as I said, I lean Strickland, but Hall always has that puncher's chance. Kong is making his return after a 2-year absence due to a broken orbital and messed up back after his last fight with Pingyuan Liu. Mr. Perfect is riding a 3-fight win streak, though his last 2 fights were close split decisions, fortunately going in his favor. Kong is an exceptional submission fighter, though standing across from him will be Ronnie Yahya, who one-ups him as it relates to a submission resume. Yahya continues to amaze, as he now has 21 of his 27 wins coming by way of submission, including his last 4 wins, most recently back in March when he submitted Ray Rodriguez inside of 2 rounds. Both of these guys are low volume with the striking, though the striking is a big component of Kang's typical game plan. He should have some issues here as Yahya will tighten up the distance, looking to tie up and scramble non-stop. With the small cage and Yahya's pressure, I could see Kong having some issues. Big fight for these two. Both had caught some eyes from their DWCS performances but fell flat in their UFC debuts. Baez was heavily frustrated by Montserrat Ruiz, who held her down the entire fight while peppering shots while keeping her in a headlock the majority of the fight. De Paula, who's a great striker, had Jin Yu Frey catch her off guard a bit and do some unexpected grappling, which led to her controlling the better half of their fight as well. For Bai's debut, I felt like the UFC played several packages, building her up a bit, which tells me they had more investment in her potential to be a fan favorite in a sense. I expect both of these two to stand and attempt to get the better of the two, but I wouldn't be surprised if Baez looks to take this one down to the mat due to the striking ability from De Paula. This one probably comes down to who controls where this fight goes most of the time, and I see Baez making adjustments in her favor, which ends up with her getting at least 2 rounds on the cards. Stoles now takes on Jared Gooden in a short notice matchup after Monir Lazes had visa issues. Stoles is well-rounded, durable, and can finish his opponent at any moment, favoring the chokes. Props to Gooden for stepping up in the replacement spot, as he looks to secure his first UFC win after dropping his first 2 opportunities. Gooden is tough to put away and has great cardio himself. In this matchup, I see Stoles mixing up the offense and staying a step ahead. Gooden made weight on 3 days' notice. This is a rebooked fight from May after Benoit had a horrible weight cut and could barely stand at the weigh-in. Benoit is on a tough skid, as he's lost 3 of his last 4. Adeshev has his back against the wall as well, and after losing his first 2 UFC fights, he has one more shot here, or it could lead to a pink slip. Adeshev has solid striking, and it could frustrate Benoit. That said, if he can get Adeshev's timing down early, Benoit could catch him as he has with knockdowns of Sergio Pettis and current champ Brandon Moreno. You have to love Brian Barberena fights. It looks like they have this one slated to kick off the main card, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a finish. Neither guy is a big decision grinder, and both look to get in there and out as quickly as possible. The problem with Witt is he has a suspect chin. 5 of his 7 losses have come via knockout, including his previous fight, which lasted all of 16 seconds. Now Witt has some submission skills, but Barberena has only 1 loss via sub on his resume, which occurred 11 years ago, early on in his career. We've never seen a run from a fighter after winning a belt in the UFC as we've seen from Montano. This looks to be the second chapter, or whatever we want to call it at this point, of her promising UFC career as she looks to get back on track after a rough go. After winning the strap, she was stripped shortly after due to weight cut issues. In the time since, she has had 7 fights cancelled, and 1 that took place, which resulted in a decision loss over Juliana Peña, though in that fight, she had her moments. If we see Montano with the skill set for which she is known, she should have minimal issues knocking off Wu Yanan, who's now lost 3 of 4, including her last 2 coming into this fight. I expect Yanan to get taken down in this one eventually, and Montano will go to work on the mat, leading to her first win since 2017. Note: Montano was 8 pounds over the limit. The fight is cancelled. 2 guys are making their UFC debut after time in the Contender Series. Although this is a big spot for some of these newcomers, Melsik shouldn't be fazed as he has some boxing and kickboxing experience before moving to MMA. Melsik has a 9-2 kickboxing resume and fought in the bright lights of the K1 World GP 3 years ago. Anglin has a chin, and if he can avoid the early big shots from Melsik, he can make this a fight, as we saw Melsik kinda melt as his fight went into the over rounds in his decision win over Denis Bazoukia last September. I'm still going to side with the guy with more combat experience, and after catching his media obligations this week, he looks more than ready to go, paired with some uber confidence in this matchup. Garcia is back after suffering the first loss of his career in a short-notice fight against a tough Nasrat Hakparist, and you have to believe Garcia is hungry and looking to get his first UFC. I think he will too. It sounds like Garcia has been training with Trevor Whitman and also spent some time with last week's winner TJ Dillashaw in prep, while Gruetzemacher has been a mystery as far as what work he is putting in at this point. Gruetzemacher came back after a 2-year layoff and was finished in less than 2 minutes versus another motivated fighter, Alexander Hernandez. Gruetzemacher is 35 now and hasn't won a fight since April of 2018, and this could be the tail end of his career while the 26-year-old Garcia is ramping up into his prime. Expect a close fight early on, with Garcia taking control and working his way to the win. This should be an awesome matchup. Both guys will trade with the best of them on the feet, and while Kamika will be the more technical of the two on the feet, Chavez will always attempt to match the volume, with less accuracy. Overall, this should be Kamika's fight to win, but if Chavez executes takedowns as he did against TJ Brown, I think he could steal this one. Not invested in this one from a betting perspective, but I'll side with the dog in a close one. Nothing to be ashamed of. Frey lost her first 2 UFC bouts, but against Kay Hansen and Loma Lookboonmee. She then got back on track and edged out a decision over the debuting Gloria DePaula back in March. Her path to victory in that spot was all about takedowns and control. Although being outstruck on the feet, she had over 9 minutes of control time, which gave the judges enough to award her the 29-28 scorecards across the board. Unfortunately for her this go around, she'll be staring across at Ashley Yoder, and Yoder's bread and butter is the grappling and submission game. Don't let Yoder's record fool you. She's always in the fight and has fought some higher-tier fighters than the former Invicta champ. Yoder will have a noticeable size advantage which should support giving her the edge with the grappling and statistically pumps out more volume on the feet, while Frey has a negative striking differential also not helping her cause. That said, I'll side with Yoder straight up and won't be boxing myself in on any props in what oddsmakers see as a competitive fight. This battle features a striker versus a grappler who can strike. Jones goes for the kill while Lawrence closes and mauls you with the takedowns. Lawrence had 12 takedowns in his DWCS match and followed that up in his UFC debut with 8 more takedowns against Vince Cachero in a fight he owned. Jones can scramble and can get up from takedowns and will be heavy if he ends up on top. Lawrence hasn't given me any reasons to fade him quite yet, even against a game opponent in Jones. I like Lawrence to grind this one out. Kosuke arrives undefeated and earns the contract after a rout of Matt Dixon on the DWCS. His official first bout was against Nicholas Dalby, though it was cancelled due to an injury. The fact that the UFC booked the newcomer against a guy ranked in the top 30 says something. Kosuke has amazing cardio and pushes the pace in his fights, and I see more of the same here against Rowe. Bro dropped his debut back in February against Gabe Green via a clear decision and followed that up by losing 2 grappling bouts over the last few months. I see Kosuke with more ways to win in this matchup, as he should have a clear edge on the mat and will trade for 15 minutes better than most. Bro's path will be keeping control of the distance, keeping the fight upright. It appears money is coming in on the dog, but I don't see it. As mentioned in the tip sheet above, here's my MMA DFS heat chart for UFC Vegas 33. As you can see, the chart is ranked based on fight finish odds. Fight finishes are where the points are in MMA DFS. Take a glance at the stack, and we will break down the individual matchups below. 2 key offensive metrics are strikes and takedowns. They get off on their opponents, watch your points rack up quickly. Here's my offensive output meter for the card. With this chart, you can compare historical fighter averages in these 2 key metrics as I rank all fighters participating Saturday. Below is the differential for strikes landed versus strikes absorbed per minute. Here is the takedown average per 15 minutes and the opponent's takedown defense percent.